it changed my life because it was at that conference that I realized that I could take the power of technology to not replace myself or replace what we do as marketers, but learn how to use it in a way that would make us better, stronger, and faster. And I think that the takeaway there is you have to push past fear.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. Today, we are so lucky to have Billy with us. Billy, will you please tell us who you are and what do you do?
So good to be here, Todd. I am Billy Howard. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Branthro. We are an agile emotional intelligence company. Our mission is to really update outdated means of customer understanding by using a mix of data science, AI, and what we feel is most critical to the future of AI, which is direct human response or direct human emotional response. Our data science was actually validated and proven out on Wall Street. Our head of data science,
Cool.
He was a data architect at Citi, and he figured out that using 100 data points, he could predict market movement and where the market was headed. And when we were fortunate enough to meet, he said, I can't think of anything that would be more akin to the market movement than emotion. And we've applied that same math to create our proprietary emotional scoring, which really helps brands and really any type of organization better understand their customers through the lens of emotional lookalikes, as opposed to just demographic information, as well as primary and secondary emotional scores to different parts of a brand experience and how those experiences are brought to life.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack there. So back up 1 second. So through what means are you gathering the data to interpret emotional behavior from these leads?
Well, basically what we do with our clients is we figure out exactly who it is they want to reach. And, when you look at existing demographic data, it's often not representative of what the population looks like today, let alone can act as a true proxy of who the customer is. So we develop a very precise screener process. We have a proprietary survey instrument that goes out and acquires the data. We have a data acquisition partner that helps us build these microsegments. And because we only need 100 data points, we're able to be predictive of a population. So people are literally selecting as many primary or secondary emotional responses as they want to different component parts of the journey, which are tied directly to specific KPIs. And they're also doing the same thing for pieces of language, content, logos, colors, so on and so forth.
Interesting. That's crazy. And so these are surveys, or you're pulling it from interaction on websites, or how are you pulling the data?
It's an online survey experience, but because it's not percentages or statistics, it's really, think about the survey as an instrument as opposed to what you may think of a traditional survey as in the past.
So if I'm your client, what are you going to do for me? You're going to come in and provide some type of application or some type of thing that I want to know about people coming to my site, or how does this work for me as a client?
Well, the use cases are limitless. I mean, what's unique about what we do is we've tied emotion to KPIs. We think about emotion as the most critical currency that's going to be driving business forward. Just as we saw creativity emerge and that about a decade ago. I happen to have written a book about that concept called WeCommerce. That those companies who invested in creativity as a function and driver of strategy would outperform those who did not. And McKinsey actually did a study several years after my book came out and proved that companies in the S&P 500 who did just that, invest in creativity, did outperform their peers. So the notion of going into a client and saying, what is a business problem that you're trying to solve? And how can we use emotion as this new X factor of driving employee engagement, developing deeper loyalty, solving for customer acquisition, understanding how to innovate in advance of what your customers want.
Totally.
That's exactly how we're using emotion to drive towards improved business outcomes, as opposed to how people thought about emotion in the past, which is much more two functions. One, let me tell you how I feel after you spend millions and millions of dollars on creating this experience, either via an emoji in my social media or through sentiment analysis. It's
Right.
not really that helpful. But better yet,
Right.
how can I get into the customer mindset
Right.
as early as possible and understand how people are feeling
Yeah.
so I can use it as a solve for a better business output?
This is super relevant. I mean, for those of you listening to this, if you're not trying to ask these questions regularly about your client avatar, you're really missing probably a lot of money on the table. And I think that what you're doing is fantastic. I literally yesterday was with my copywriter for a few hours discussing this exact thing. What is the emotional trigger? What is the thing we need to do to trigger the emotional response? We need to get them to take this call to action. And it sounds like you're able to do this through a very sophisticated routine. What exactly, I mean, give us some ideas of some different use cases and maybe some examples of how you've been able to execute this for your clients.
I mean, the use cases are limitless. We just worked with a major consulting firm who wanted to figure out how to imagine the future of work against the LGBTQ cohort. And we wanted to,
Right.
instead of looking at that cohort as one monolith, we broke it up into the L, the G, the B, the T, and the Q. So we looked at them as individual
That's smart.
emotional profiles or emotional lookalikes. And then we did
Yeah.
the same thing by
Yeah.
creating emotional lookalikes of Fortune 1000 CEOs. And out of that, we were able to create a blueprint emotionally for where CEOs and that cohort, what did they have in common about imagining the future of work, which very encouragingly and surprisingly was they were on the same page. Everybody wants to move towards a better tomorrow, but the real differences lied in two key areas. One was how quickly that change could be actuated, right? CEO is much more
Right.
measured in their approach. The cohort obviously wants
Sure.
them to change more quickly. But really, what it came down to as well was fundamentally a lack of understanding about some of the nuances, particularly related to benefits and having the cohort being seen as they want to identify. But coming up with a plan for an organization to operationalize how they're going to build the future of their organization, compelling. Totally other type
Right.
of use case. We had a major alcohol brand come to us. They wanted to, it was a vodka brand. They wanted to understand why people were not drinking as much vodka. They wanted to redo their brand purpose. And
Right.
they wanted to better engage Hispanics and
Right.
Blacks on premise. We injected emotion into the process.
Interesting.
And when they had a 27% increase in sales and a 47% increase by the two
Nice.
populations that I mentioned. So it's all about using emotion,
Crazy.
but again, not about this, let me make you cry in a commercial, although that's still important, but more so, how can I make you
Right.
feel every single day in a way that you value so that you want to have a relationship with me, not just a transaction?
Fantastic. I get it. And this is powerful. And for those of you listening, you really need to check out what she's doing. I have links to her company down below in the show notes. Check it out. It is very cool stuff. And I honestly, I think it's just amazing. It's super powerful, and you're utilizing all the modern tools to help make it happen faster, which is awesome.
Thank you.
Billy, tell us now about your business. We want to know about your growth. How has this come along? I mean, it doesn't all happen all at once with a business like this.
Right.
What did it look like in the beginning? And what are some decisions you had to make along the way to kind of get yourself to A, profitability, and B, clients that trusted that this process would work?
Well, there's a couple of critical learnings along the way. I mentioned earlier that I had written a book, and in doing so, I had stepped away from. I worked in big agency life for the majority of my career, and I wrote the book, and I
Right.
was doing some consulting and speaking, and I had a life changing moment that it scared the crap out of me, to be quite frank. IBM approached me and they asked me to be a futurist for them. And I wasn't afraid to be a futurist, but I was afraid to be a futurist about introducing Watson and AI to CMOs because at the time I had absolutely no idea what AI really was about. And they asked me to do a keynote
Right.
and I was terrified. But I threw myself into the deep end and it changed my life because it was at that conference that
Cool.
I realized that I could take the power of technology to not replace myself or replace what we do
Right.
as marketers, but learn how to use it in a way that would make us better, stronger, and faster. And I think that the takeaway there
Leverage it.
is you have to push past fear. If you're ever in a place of complacency, you're never going to get to the next level. The other thing I would
Right.
say is,
Right. Right.
you have to have the courage to fail. I mean, we had to fail forward many, many times to be able to get to where we are today. And, success is measured. It takes failure, it takes disruption, and it takes, quite frankly, especially if you're an entrepreneur, the appetite and ability to be told no over and over and over again, but learn from it
Right.
and believe in what your vision is, because only through the rigor of trial and innovation as a process can you really get to the levels that you imagine success to look like.
I want to thank you so much for listening to this episode, but I also want to take just a few seconds to let you know about a project that we've been putting together for the last several months, and we're finally launching it, called the Captain's Council. You see, as a CEO or operator of a business, it can feel like you get stuck in your own head a lot of the time. You get challenges that you don't know how to resolve. You get people causing problems in your leadership team that you don't know how to resolve, and it's so hard to overcome those things by yourself. You don't have to anymore. Join the Captain's Council. Captain's Council is a group of other CEOs and operators and owners of businesses where we come together once a month for several hours to discuss the biggest challenges you're facing. You express to the council of 8 to 10 people about what's going on. Where do you feel stuck? And these other people are in the same boat as you. They're running and operating their own businesses. They're your peers. They help you kind of dissect what's happening and help you see things that you may not have seen all by yourself. If you don't have a good, strong network of people around you, come join the Captain's Council. This is going to be something that will change the way you run your business and open your eyes to opportunities that you have never seen without the help of your peer group. Come check it out, captainscouncil.com. Totally agree. Totally agree. So what does that look like? I mean, it sounds like you did this project for IBM. You keynoted at the launch of something you didn't fully understand. When you dove in and started figuring out what this really meant, what kind of emotional response did it trigger for you? I mean, marketers are always trying to trigger emotion. What did it do for you, and how did you capture that in a bottle and put it into a product?
Well, what excited me most is, I was, as I said, in marketing and communications and C-suite advisory for many years in the first part of my career, but I kind of reached a threshold of how far I could go when I was about 35 years old. And that was extremely sad and frustrating because I loved what I
Yeah.
did. But then I was like, well, where am I going next? And at my core, I've always been an entrepreneur, but I
Yeah.
wasn't exactly sure of what to do. And when I was presented with the idea of building a technology company from scratch,
Right.
predicated on
Right.
what I do best, and then ultimately have brought along with me people that I have met along the
Right.
way who are the best at what they do in our space.
Right.
It's been a very, very rewarding experience because it's like, growing together with people
Right.
who you respect, and the team has gotten bigger and bigger. We're still, a finite group because we are a startup, but we have been
Right.
profitable for the last 3 years. We're totally self-funded to date,
Awesome.
and we're finally at the point of going to our next phase, which is not direct to brand through a software as a service product, but really
Right.
becoming an emotional or API plugin, if you will, to any stack so that
Interesting.
emotion can be brought to scale.
Interesting. That's a smart play. It's a really smart play.
Working on it.
And Billy,
Working on
I mean, the math is not adding up for me though. You said that this happened when you were 35, and being at 37, how could you have been doing this for this long? It
No,
anyway.
I didn't
Well,
say that. I said I reached a threshold at 35, figured out it took me a while to figure out what I was going to do, and I made the pivot to write the book
I
probably
love it.
6, 7 years ago, and then we started the company maybe 4 years ago.
I'm just
Does it
teasing.
add up now?
No, You're awesome. You're awesome. Thanks for playing with me. No, here's the thing. The funnest part about what you've just described is that you have taken a career of advisory and marketing and strategy, and now you discovered something that you were a little bit nervous about, but discovered something that can be completely utilized by so many people out there. So many companies and brands need to know not just the demographics anymore. They need to know what's going to trigger a response from the people they want to get a response from. And I think that what you're talking about is sounds like an amazing solution for people like me, who yesterday was having this conversation with my team. How do we trigger a
Yeah.
better emotional response, and how do we get this to happen? So, an engagement with you, what does this look like? I mean, you talking about an API plugin potentially? You're talking about like what is it looking forward going to mean for you to engage with the client?
Well, we're always going to have our direct to brand business because at our core, well, at least myself and a couple of my partners, we love to work with brands and we love to solve problems. And what's been most exciting as of late is we've actually had a lot of not for profit organizations come to us
Cool.
to solve very meaningful problems related to using emotion against all of the inequity that's going on in the world. So while we
Right.
want that to be 5% of our business, we have a very clear runway for growth of doing exactly what you just said, which is being a
Cool.
plug-in or stacks, whether it's for agencies, whether it's for call centers,
Right.
whether it's for hopefully in a future environment as we get smarter, programmatic environment, which will hopefully remove a lot of the unconscious bias that exists with AI alone and make better experiences for people, reimagine the media business. We have a lot of aspirations that can only happen if we are, a complete API plugin, which is
Right.
where we are right now. And we're in the middle of, rolling out a lot of trials to see how that's going to work.
Crazy. So as you look at what the position you're in right now, and making that transition from being an in-person, B2B type solution, and consultative, I guess you could say, and bringing these
Mhm.
solutions to companies, going into that next phase, what kind of challenges have you had thus far, and what do you foresee kind of being some of the big hurdles you gotta leap over?
Well, it's always a chicken and egg thing, right? So when you're thinking about
Right.
taking on funding, you want to make the choice of the right partner, but you also want to make sure that the right partner chooses you. And sometimes
Right.
in order to get the funding that you need to demonstrate growth that you can't possibly demonstrate without somebody taking a chance on you. So fortunately, we have a
Right.
lot of warm contacts that I've known and we've known as a team for a while who I'm
Yeah.
confident will give us the cash reserves that we need to get to the scale that we want. The other thing, obviously,
Sure.
is we're changing an entire paradigm. So you need early adopters. Fortunately, we've been blessed to have a lot of very big name lighthouse clients who have come along on this journey with
Right.
us. But after early adopters, you need to make that leap to mainstream adoption. And what we're hoping
Yeah.
is that when we're an ingredient that gets plugged into a stack that's just going to use emotion to make experiences better for everyone, it'll become much
Right.
more widely used, accessible, and adoptable.
For sure. For sure. No doubt about it. That is the solution. That is the process that everyone needs to be thinking about. And for those listening, pay attention to what Billy's doing here and what she's describing, because, you know, I talk a lot of people talk about launching, not a lot of people talk about what to do next. And Billy has been around the block. She's seen this happen with other clients and people that she's worked with. And now that you're executing this, Billy, what advice do you have for other people who maybe don't know, like, okay, how much do I discount for these initial clients who want to test and utilize my product, and what should I commit to them? When should I do it for free, and when do I do it for just a discount? I think these are questions a lot of people have. What is your strategy going to be?
Well, we're always willing to invest in ourselves, right? So if someone's going to open the door and give us an
Yeah.
opportunity to shine, there's never an opportunity that we're not going to crush it out of the park. And I think that not enough people
Right.
knock on
Right.
enough doors to get to a yes. any person that you know who's extremely successful, whether it's Steve Jobs, who was fired many times before he got Apple right, or it's many, many entrepreneurs that
Right.
you know who are extremely successful today, they didn't get to be successful by doing it for a day or a week or a year. The gentleman who created Peloton, I believe the story is that he ran out of money, a couple of weeks before Peloton blew up into what it is today. So you got to hang on, and you
Is
have
that right?
yeah, I believe so. And you have to believe
Uh,
you have to believe in yourself. And the other thing I think people
you
sometimes
do.
don't do is they're not transparent. People respect authenticity and they respect when you're honest. And if you're honest
Agreed.
and you say where you're at and where you want to be and you want to partner with someone to get
Right.
to from point A to point B, that's a much more respectable place to be
Right.
than saying you have all of this experience and you don't.
Totally. Totally. Fake it till you make it doesn't always work. And I think that you're exactly right. That was a common strategy back in the day. And now that we actually need those initial clients need to be good feedback partners too. They need to be able to feel like, okay, I know I'm early in the game with you. Let me tell you what I've liked so far and what is driving me nuts. And those are the types of clients you really want to adopt early on in any venture, don't you think?
You hit the nail on the head. You crushed it, actually. I mean, we have seen the best growth in the company, obviously, because we've reached a certain maturation point, but we brought on a chief customer officer a little over
Right.
a year ago. And having somebody
Right.
be the voice of the customer and get the feedback and really understand how we can refine and innovate in real time against a need set, as opposed to what we imagine that people should want, as opposed to what clients need,
Right.
has made an immeasurable difference. And I think your
Right.
your point is an excellent one.
Thank you. I totally respect that, and that's what you're doing right now, and I hope that it translates well to the audience because really every client launches sometimes with just a bunch of random products just to get them off the ground. They got to get off the ground, got to get some cash flow going. But when it comes right down to it, I think that the position you're in is very similar to a lot of people, whereas like we're cash flowing, we've been bootstrapped, we're not beholden to anyone, but now we're really trying to strip away the stuff we don't like doing and push forward the initiative that we think we want to just keep doing, wake up every day excited to do moving forward. Is that kind of where you're at?
Yeah. Well, when you strip away
That's
everything,
awesome.
yeah, it's a really exciting place to be because, as I said, it's not
It
easy.
is.
It's not easy being an entrepreneur, but when you're able to be driven by a passion and a belief that what you're doing is right with the right people, you know, I feel very
Yeah.
lucky that I get to wake up and do that every day because I know a lot of people who wake up and
Love
hate
it.
what they do. So,
Especially entrepreneurs. It shocks me how many people wake up every day and say, "Oh, I got to go deal with the headache." When it's the headache they created,
right,
right? They could change it if they wanted to.
true, true.
so, so Billy, you're a smart woman. You've got. I have to imagine you've surrounded yourself with some very good people, not only on your team, but people that give you good advice. What is there a group? Is there a person that you look to for mentorship or someone to bounce ideas off of that's kind of helped you get to this point in the journey?
I've been fortunate enough to have a handful of female mentors, and when I say a handful, I'm saying maybe 2, maybe 3. And, unfortunately, women sometimes aren't as supportive of other women in tech and beyond. But
Interesting.
my first boss always rewarded people, especially me, as a meritocracy. It wasn't confined to a period of time or what the percentage should be.
Right.
I went above and beyond and I
Right.
was rewarded above and beyond. And that's why I was able to ascend the ranks as quickly as I did because I deserved to. And she didn't care that I was 25 as opposed to 40. So that's something that I've always
Right.
with
Right.
me. I reward people for how hard they work. Um, Another mentor of mine has always taught me to, it's hard to not give up. It's hard
Right.
to have the courage to believe in yourself outside the confines of a traditional corporate structure, which most of us
Totally.
especially the my mentors only had that as an option, and they have still encouraged me to step out and go on my own because they believe in me. And just having
Love it.
female support and camaraderie in addition to all of the men who have helped me along the way.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's unfortunately sometimes it's more unusual women helping women, but hopefully that's changing.
That is interesting. That's interesting. Now, I didn't hear a name on either one of these two mentors. Are they non-shout outable?
Diane Perry is the first one, and Maureen Mitchell is the second one.
Diane, Maureen, thank you. Thank you for encouraging Billy. There's something about hearing your name on anything online that just does bring a power. And Billy, thanks for giving them the shout out, and especially you women who have been able to work together to build each other up. I love it. I think it's fascinating. I've got 3 daughters of my own, and I look forward to seeing what they become in the future. And I'm so grateful that you've been able to build and grow your business to where you're at today. So, Billy, way to go. Thanks for being an example. I can't wait to see what your company does here in the next few years, and how you're able to tap into the multitude of potential clients through a plug-in API or however you end up doing it. It's exciting. Can't wait to watch this.
Thank you so much for your support and for being such a lovely host and having me on. It's been wonderful to talk to you, Todd. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And to all you listening, listen to this twice if you need to. Check out the next episode as well. So glad you're here.
Take care.
Thanks, Billy. You're awesome. Hey, what did you think of Billy? She's amazing, isn't she? I love the model. I love the problem that she's trying to solve. And I am confident that as she figures out this tech piece of her journey, it's going to blow up. Like, she's got a really, really cool thing going on. And for those of you listening, I hope you understand that sometimes it takes a few years figuring out the model. But then once you figure it out, go hard and enjoy. Some of the things that she mentioned is that she has these mentors who've been able to guide and shape, give her the feedback she needs to figure out what the best play is for her and her business. It can be so hard sometimes as an operator of a business to feel like if I go to my employees, they're going to freak out. If I go to my investors, they're going to freak out. Who do I talk to when I've got problems? And there is a solution. The sponsor of today's show is Captain's Counsel. You may have seen an ad earlier in the show, but Captain's Counsel is there to help you as a founder or operator of a company figure out through a network of peers who are also running and engaging in their business growth, what to do next. What are the next plays? I'm stuck. My revenue's good, but not great. What do I need to do to make that change? And who's going to hold me accountable? Well, the peer group inside of Captain's Counsel is there for you. They are there. There are people just like you running and operating a business, having questions along the way, wondering what their next step is, and they need someone to celebrate with when things go well. That's what a community is all about. Check out captainscounsel.com. See if it's the right place for you. I have a feeling it is. So if you're in a growth and scaling journey, keep listening to these episodes, join the Captain's Counsel, and we cannot wait to keep seeing you in our community. Like, share, subscribe. Let everyone know this is the place to come for growth and scaling inspiration. We'll see you on the next episode.